because in case anything happens, I can repost this. And let's go live. Okay. We are now ready to stream, going live. Good morning, everyone. Happy Open Innovation Thursday. Today we are kicking the day very early. Today is Thursday, May 9, 2024. My name is Marisol Menendez, and I'm doing this experiment that began as just a quick chat in Open Innovation. We call them the Open Innovation Thursdays, when we are discussing about open innovation, guided by the chapters of the Oxford Innovation Handbook, Oxford Open Innovation Handbook, published back in February. And we are having every week a 15-minute conversation with each of the authors from each of the chapters. Today, we are doing chapter 12. And you know, I introduced myself in previous session, of course, but I'm a practitioner of open innovation. I enjoy working all my days in activities related to open innovation. I like to think about it, to create methodologies, to understand the challenges that we have in the day-to-day in the implementation. And one of the best things about our open innovation community in general in the world is that we work really intensively to connect academia and practice and to learn from each other. So, you know, these sessions today with amazing people such as Ioana Stafan, who is our guest today, are incredible and a unique opportunity. So, as I said, Ioana, today is our chapter 12, and you're the author. Welcome today.
Thank you, Marisol. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Where are you connecting from, Ioana?
Today I'm connecting from Stockholm. That's where I'm based.
Wow.
In Sweden. Yeah.
This is one of the great things, because throughout these interviews, we are verifying this, that Henry and Agnieszka said in their first chapters that this book was really an effort of open innovation, because there are participants from all over the world and many disciplines. And that's why I'm so excited having you today. But first things first, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So, hello, I'm Ioana Stafan. I'm associate professor at Mälardalen University in Sweden. And yeah, I mostly do research on innovation. Actually, I began with a focus on IP and open innovation. So that has been my core for many years. And from that, apologies, I think a lot of different interesting topics have emerged through the years, as the topic today, ethics in open innovation. But I'm also passionate about researching innovation in relation to, for instance, sustainability and circularity. And also going a bit towards the entrepreneurship perspective related to innovation. And there's a lot to study there, of course. So going from open innovation, it's easy to land into topics such as ecosystem, be they, you know, circular ecosystem or entrepreneurial ecosystems. And also, if you go from the IP route that I was talking about, you can go into many interesting topics. It can be policy for IP, it can be standards, it can be a lot of different things. And I think, you know, there's a lot of also more hidden topics like ethics that maybe are implicit in a lot of these, you know, themes that we research. So it's nice to bring them to the surface and start talking about them.
This is so amazing. You hit so many gems in this brief introduction. Just yesterday, I was speaking with another colleague here specialized in open innovation. And one of the things we realized during our conversation is open innovation is about collaboration. When you create these nets of collaborations or build bridges, you are creating like an infrastructure of relations that will generate this value throughout collaboration. And that infrastructure is called ecosystem. No?
Yes.
That's one of the reasons I introduced myself as an open innovation expert and ecosystem orchestrator, because I think one thing is related to the other, but also because all this infrastructure is created by human connections. We end up having to analyze how we distribute learnings, wealth, and gains, which is part of the IP analysis, and also, of course, the ethics topics arise, because this is all about connections between people, no? And our humanness at root. And one of the things I like, very giggly like, is the title of your book. It's perfect, no? The good, the bad, and the open. And I think it's perfectly clear that we're talking about the ethic considerations related to open innovation. But can you please give us a brief introduction, what the chapter is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for appreciating the title. Of course, it's always nice to find something catchy and maybe that relates to a title that people know and are familiar with, because then it's easier to remember it. So the chapter started from this curiosity of yeah, like I said, I think ethics is inherent in many of the innovation and collaboration processes that we study and that we work with, either as practitioners or as researchers, and even as policymakers, perhaps. But it's not that much brought to the surface. It has been more implicit than explicit. I started considering it more, let's say, seriously when I was writing my dissertation, so my PhD thesis, some 5 years ago, and I had to motivate, why is it important to look at these tensions between IP, protection and knowledge sharing in open innovation, and I came to partly this, these ethical considerations. There were some issues of fairness, of course, how you distribute, the benefits from collaboration, as you just mentioned. And of course, there's other aspects. And then a few years later, I had the chance to actually explore this further. We have a paper in Journal of Business Research with Wim van Habeck, Pia Molina, and Eva-Lisa Oikarinen, and we look at these individual effective responses when things go, let's say, unfairly in open innovation collaborations, starting from IP issues, and it was very interesting to see that even people who are not idea originators, so are not the inventors, are still affected if they are either intermediaries or part of the companies that didn't benefit as much. So yeah, it seems that there's something there, right? And with the COVID pandemic, we've seen also some interesting articles about data privacy and this yeah, let's say dilemma or tension between either looking at individuals' privacy for that data, but also at the public benefits of sharing the data, and there's a lot of discussions there on how to balance this. So I think ethics is becoming more and more important, and the attempt of this chapter has been to just bring it to light and start talking about it.
This is amazing, because at the end, this fairness creates trust, and trust is the key for long-lasting relationships, and the value creation that we look in the very basic definition of open innovation, which is create a value, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, through the knowledge sharing. By the way, we already have Wim van Habeck in 2 past interviews here, and next week, in the future weeks, we will be talking with Pia Molina as well. So This also shows that we are connecting topics one to the other, because at the end we are intertwining different threads of this open innovation knowledge. But let's dig into the chapter now. So what's the good, what's the ugly, and what's the open related to open innovation? What
That's a
are your
great
conclusions?
question. Great question, Marisol. Thank you. Yeah, and just to preface and to continue on what you were saying, it's indeed they are all connected, all the chapters. I was watching with a lot of interest your interview last week with Marcus, and of course the IP, strategies and these dimensions he was talking about. Of course, they relate and they have some ethical, components underlying there. And with Pia's chapter, I think it's a very clear connection as well, because fairness is actually a dimension of trust. So you kind of implicitly expect it if you trust a partner in innovation or a collaborator of some sort. Yeah, so let's dig in.
No, and just to point out related to that, because this is also a very hot topic here, trust and fairness in asymmetrical collaborations, where you have, and you mentioned it before, corporations with startups, or very big government institutions with small companies, SMEs. It's a critical topic to discuss. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, absolutely. So, there's good and bad in the sense that open innovation has a lot of benefits, of course, and initially those were very much analyzed and highlighted, but at the same time there's these dark sides, these hidden problems that you don't always expect, and sometimes they're also very complex, so they're difficult to handle, and the open, of course, needs to balance the two. Right? So we need to find solutions, frameworks, mechanisms, strategies, and much more, toolkits to work with the good and the bad, so that we come to the value that we aim to create and to capture in ecosystems, in society at large. And the chapter is a literature review, and it came up to 300 articles initially, but going through those, actually only about 60 were relevant. I think it's 59, the final count. And I was able to split them into 3 main themes. So I guess you could relate these themes with the good and the bad in some ways. So, for instance, the first theme is the biggest one. So it has the most articles. I think it's more than a third, maybe, of the total, and it relates to aspects of knowledge sharing, fairness, trust, as you mentioned. So all these things, and I think some of the very interesting things that I found is in the articles in this first theme are, for instance, that there are studies about so-called knowledge sharing behavior, right? So if you look at the individual level, and that is affected by not just by fairness, but also by the perceptions that individuals have about how the other collaborators are behaving, and in one paper, I think it's by Gechter et al., they talk about the fragility of knowledge sharing. So, fairness or unfairness can affect this fragility. And, if we don't find ways to properly trust each other and to share knowledge, then the value is not created or co-created, right, between two or more parties. And of course, also this first theme highlights, the importance of fairness and like moral values, also in relation to sustainable transitions, to green initiatives. So it's very important to have this in mind, I think, in a lot of innovation and sustainability-oriented processes that we work with.
Wow.
Yeah. And the second theme is, more about the dark side. So there you have aspects of opportunistic behavior and yeah, intellectual property misappropriation and all these kinds of things related to, patent infringements and holdups and a lot of other things that, can be used to, well, create these asymmetries in value capture, basically, between, partners. So that's a lot to, let's say, there's mechanisms there that you can use to counter some of these problems. For instance, you can use specific contracts like milestone contracts to make sure that IP issues are avoided in some types of collaborations. But of course, if you look at less experienced smaller firms like startups, they don't really have those resources and competences yet, but they do need to be open and sometimes also to signal that they have IP. So then it becomes tricky for them to navigate this minefield of, this dark side of open innovation. And I think, yeah, please go ahead.
I wanted just to add that this is where maybe the central players in the ecosystem, such as government institutions and accelerators, can help. But I also like, in general, as culture of society, we are moving in this collaboration area from the Zuma Zero game, where if one wins, the other loses, and everything, contracts and relationships and IP are prepared to that. Moving towards a collaborative dynamic and mindset implies creating new dynamics. And I think this is it's not as well spread out throughout society in general, all around businesses and every collaboration nowadays, no? We're learning to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, completely. And the third team is quite small. At least it was at the time when I wrote the chapter. I think it's almost 2 years ago that we were, sending different drafts to our lovely editors who did brilliant, work to edit all of these chapters. And this theme is related to, data. And digitalization and ethical concerns in this. And there is quite little about this, but it's starting to become, a more and more hot topic, I think. So as mentioned before, there have been issues about data connected to pandemic, and there's been a lot of accelerated innovation during the pandemic, partly thanks to open innovation initiatives, but then we have to be careful with the data and the different levels. If you look at the individual level, if you look at the societal level, there's probably different, KPIs and different goals that you need to be careful and balance. I think this is definitely a topic for future research. Because I'm sure there's been a lot more papers published, on ethics and data, and I see a lot of projects that are starting, looking, for instance, at ethics in AI and more.
Exactly. No, related data is obviously always connecting us to AI as the accelerator of the use of data. Ioana, this is amazing. You can see 15 minutes give us a lot of time to go around and get inspiration about the main topics of open innovation. We are ready to close. I don't know if you want to do a final call to action, anything you want our listeners to take home with them?
Sure. I think I just want to point out, we didn't talk so much about what ethics means, and ethics, is a branch of philosophy that studies values, and those values will probably, be defined at individual level. So different people will have slightly different definitions and images of what is ethical and what is not. And this will also be contextual. So I think starting the conversation and understanding that there will be these differences, even when we talk about, these big consortia or about ecosystems, I think it's important to remember that it's people, it's humans who have these different values, and yeah, that's the start of trying to build something, to build the trust and to ensure that you have fair processes.
I have a friend that says that humans are like plants. Every plant needs the same water, sun, and a little bit of soil. But the difference between each of them is the dosage of water and sun that they need and the quality of soil. So we are all the same, no, as humanity, but different.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for bringing such interesting insights and opening this, I might say, a little bit kind of worms, no, that we need to consider within open innovation collaborations. And well, of course, everybody, there are lots of areas of research still open that are also like defined within your chapter. And of course, many interesting areas of practice. So let's keep connecting academia and practice and keep learning and developing open innovation together. Thank you very much for your time, Joanna, and happy Open Innovation Thursday.
Thank you, Marisol. Happy Open Innovation Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.